Russell Labby.
Big plans for Plymouth Airport.
Should culled cows be burnt in fields?
And a giant-sized protection racket.
Hello, good evening. Spotlight has learned that plans have been drawn up to expand Plymouth Airport in a bid to preserve the South West's air link to Heathrow. The move's being supported by industrialists who say the economic future of the region is at stake. But the scheme is likely to be opposed by local residents who've been campaigning against the development of the airport. Our industry correspondent Neil Gallagher has this exclusive report.
Plymouth Airport has come a very long way from its beginnings as a grass airstrip. The original sporadic air link to the outside world has developed into what's now widely regarded as an economic lifeline for much of the southwest. British Airways now owns Bryman, the original airline, and flies to Heathrow via a Newquay stop-off. Most other regional English airports have lost their link to Heathrow because the precious landing slots there are increasingly hard to hang on to. BA wants airport improvements because the restricted runway at Plymouth means its small 50-seater Dash 8 planes are not allowed to have a full payload of passengers and fuel on takeoff. They can pick up more at Newquay, but the airline wants to be allowed to have a full payload in Plymouth. It wants an extended runway, but this is controversial because the airport already has a built-up housing area very close to it, and residents have opposed many recent developments.
Annoying as a word, and very upsetting at times. When they pass over you, any sense of listening to conversation is lost because of the noise level.
The BBC has learned that complex negotiations about a possible runway extension are underway behind the scenes between the owner of Plymouth Airport, the City Council, British Airways and other interested parties. There are various options and a final decision is still many weeks away, but the proposal most likely to worry the residents is the idea put forward by British Airways itself. It wants to make more of the main runway by realigning it slightly and extending it southwards. A problem here is two factories just beyond the airport perimeter. For the proposal to go any further, these would need to be demolished, and then the runway could be extended as the airline wants. Industrialists in Cornwall say it's crucial to keep British Airways in Plymouth. The South West, they say, can't afford to risk losing the airline and the key landing slots it owns at Heathrow.
We cannot afford to let inward investment and the businesses in Cornwall down by not having a service, and we do not wish to be seen as a backwater in the UK.
Plymouth City Council said it was too early to comment on the possible changes. It believes it may not be necessary to extend the airport boundary. Whether that'll reassure the residents is another matter.
Well, joining us from the airport now is local resident Tom Russell. So some are saying expansion is crucial to the development of the region. Given that, will local residents accept it?
Well, this is the sort of thing we've had from the council for years, but I think we've got the question wrong here. It isn't whether the airport is essential for Plymouth and the South West or not. Nobody's ever proved that one way or the other. We've asked for figures from the City Council and from the airport. We've even asked for a list of firms that the council have declared to be extant, in a list that is extant rather, who have threatened to leave Plymouth and the South West if the airport closes down, but they can't produce that list at any time.
But the business community is obviously arguing that the link to London is vital. Most of the houses were built after the airport. How can you argue against expansion when surely that was always on the cards, possibly?
I'm sorry, it was never on the cards. When I came here in 1972, this was a small grassed field. And the 0624 runway wasn't even built then. It cost the council £85,000 to build that, and another £100,000 to build the control tower. That's my money.
But some people, Mr. Russell, will argue this is a NIMBY protest, that expansion does need to happen, that the airport needs to go somewhere. Are you suggesting it should be in someone else's backyard?
No, I'm not suggesting it should be anywhere. We have a perfectly good airport in Devon, at Exeter. We have one in Cornwall at St Morgan. Why don't we develop those? They're huge.
But
They're
Mr.
huge
Russell,
airports, and they're out in the middle of the
the
countryside.
Dash 7s currently being used are oversubscribed. British Airways wants to run the Dash 8s in the future with more seating capacity, and they can't manage on the existing runway. That's a clear case, surely.
Well, they're not using Dash 7s at the moment. They're using Dash 8 300s, which superseded the Dash 8 100s.
So where will you take a protest from here?
Well, I'm not going to take my protest anywhere. All I would like to say is that I have a letter here from the solicitor's office in the city civic centre. Under the terms of the lease of the airport, if any activities cause unreasonable nuisance and annoyance to owners or occupiers of any property in the neighbourhood, then the council has the discretion to issue reasonable directions to the airport to discontinue. And we don't have any argument at all with British Airways. This is the sort of story that's been put about by our useless councillors in Southway, who have offered no help at all. And what we're objecting to is the flying school, the helicopters, the peel operations.
Your opposition, Mr. Russell, is very clear. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
You're welcome.